So today I'm just going to give you a couple of different types of people you should try and avoid if you're a freelancer. What's good? Today we're going to be speaking about nightmare clients. We've all been there. We've either been one or we've had to interact with one. So today I'm just going to give you a couple of different types of people you should try and avoid if you're a freelancer, if you're working for yourself, or if you're someone who's trying to get services from someone. Try to make sure that you don't fall into one of these categories to ensure that you keep relationships strong between you and the person that you're working with. First up is the damsel. This comes from the term damsel in distress, right? This is basically someone will come to you and they'll say, look, I've gotten this work done with 15 other people and none of them have gotten it right. I've gotten various drafts back, I've done various revisions with different people, and I'm just looking for someone who's going to get the job done for me properly. Now, these clients are very easy to, I would say, to start working with. The issue comes in later down the line when you start to realize the reason as to why they weren't able to get that final draft, the one that they were happy with. What I've found is they tend to not really know what it is that they're looking for, or they tend to have a bit of a mismatch between their expectations and what's actually possible. So I'll take it to the music world. Sometimes someone will come to me and they'll say, look, I've worked with 6-7 other engineers before you and I want to get this track mixed. They come to you with this track and you start working on it, and very quickly you realize that their expectations are out of this world and the recordings that they've given you aren't that great. Or you'll get to the 6th or 7th revision and you'll realize that you're going back and redoing things that you did in the first and second revision. So if you're a freelancer, just be careful of people who come to you after they've been to many other people, because they might not necessarily know what they're looking for. And sure, you can be the person to let them know that, look, this is the expectations. Set your expectations and be done with it right there. Yeah, I've found a headache with quite a few people that have worked like that, and I tend to avoid them. The second kind of person is the just one more thing kind of person. As freelancers, we are susceptible to scope creep. What that is you'll be doing your work. So say me as a mixing engineer, I do my work as a mixing engineer, and then they're like, look, just one more thing, can you please plug me to people who can get X and Y done? Sure, the referral is fine, but now they start asking you to do other things for them outside of the scope of the original work that you're doing, right? You can if it's within your capabilities and you have the time. But unfortunately, you give someone a finger, they want the hand. You give them the hand, they want the whole arm. You give them the arm, they want the body. So be careful and protect your time. Having these just one more thing people is okay, but you then also need to be very, very strict about, I'm working up to this point. Anything outside of this is outside of the scope of this project. Even though I might be able to do it, I'm just going to charge, right? There's going to be a charge for my time, for my effort, for my resources, whatever it is that I'm doing, okay? So just be very, very careful like that. Now, if you're a person utilizing a service, ensure that you understand exactly what you're getting from the person. You don't want to end up in a position where you ask someone to create the track for you. Now you start asking them for other things like, please help me with promotion, please help me with this, please help me with that. And at the end of the day, this person, when they're invoicing you, they invoice you for everything, and then out of nowhere you're like, but why, alright? And it was because you decided to do scope creep. You didn't know, you were just asking for a favor or extra work, and then the other person was like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna add it to the bill at the end of the day. It's happened to me before, I have done it. It is a little bit underhanded, I would say, because the person who's giving the service should be able to very clearly tell you that, look, this is outside of the scope, it's going to drive your price up. And I try to let people also know that, look, I can do it for you, but if I'm going to make a custom beat for you as opposed to you picking out something from my catalog, it's going to drive the price up. So be careful of those people. Third people, the haggler. In this economic climate, it is very common for people to try and bring your price down. But there are people who are they haggle. Whatever the price is, they just try and drag you down. I know Fiverr is rife with that. Well, it was rife with that for me because I was dealing at a very at a lower price point. And that meant that anytime I'd set a price for something, I would ask for $30, people would be like, well, can you do it? Can you get it done for $15? I'd set my price at $50, they'd be like, can you get it done for $25? And at every turn, there would be some kind of negotiation to drive your price down. I'm okay with that. It is a marketplace, and if you've been to a market in Africa, you're very, very used to that type of thing, where you're bargaining. You're trying to find a place where you, as the person doing the work, is happy for doing it at that price, and the person who's come to you feels like they've gotten a decent deal. As a freelancer, at some point you want to push yourself out of that and get to a place where you're able to set your rates, and that's it. This is what I'm going to charge you. If it is someone that you know and there's a relationship to be built there, you might want to then concede a bit and maybe give them a bit of a discount. If they're doing bulk work with you, if they're doing long-term work with you, you might want to have a show of goodwill and give them a bit of extra work at a slight discount, right? As the person getting the service, I would say you can push. Always ask for a discount if you're well within your right to do so. Other than that, also understand that this person is using their time, their resources, and they might actually need the money that you're going to give them. And business is business, right? I don't need you to care about whether or not that they can feed their family, but at the same time, if they've set a price, understand that they've already accounted for you asking for a discount, so it's okay to ask for the discount initially. But driving the price down to a point where you're getting 50, 60, 70, I've seen people do their work at 30% of their normal rate, and I'm like, but what are you doing? You're not even going to be able to break even. The only time I would say do that is if you're trying to build up your portfolio, but if you're doing that, rather just work for free than doing that, because what's going to happen is you're going to continue working at that rate and you're going to kill yourself with the amount of work that you're going to be doing. Fourth person is the non-communicator. This one is an interesting one because they tend to have moments. If you're lucky, you pick it up before you start working with them, but they tend to be pretty bad with their communication. They can't get their ideas across, and you might only pick it up later down the line. You're like halfway through the project and they ghost you. This is not great, especially if you're working on a time-based platform like Fiverr, where you'll say 3 days. On day 2, you need them. On the 3rd day, you're like, yo, I wasn't able to get to you on day 2. Now you're scrambling to get the project done. You don't know what's going on, and they come back to you at the end of the 3rd day. You want to ensure that if you are dealing with someone who's a non-communicator, that you get as much of everything that you need at the beginning to be able to get all your work done. So ask questions. If you're the person doing the work, ask all the questions that you need. Go through the work. I remember when I first got the scripts to do for voiceover, I would read through it, but I wouldn't read, I would just quickly skim over it. But now what I do is before I even start the job, I go from the beginning to the end of that script and I just look for any words that I might not know how to pronounce. I look for any sort of weird things that have been represented in a weird way. Just yesterday I had a script where they had the plus sign and then a number, and I'm like, how am I supposed to say this? I understand what it means. They had an increase in whatever that metric was, but how do I say that? I can't say our plus and then the number. It doesn't make sense. So you have to get all the information beforehand, because you don't know that when you start the project, they've paid you your deposit and you now start moving, that you're going to get a hold of them. And it's tricky, especially when the window is very small. If the window's a bit bigger or maybe there isn't a window and you can literally wait on them to give you a reply, that works a bit better, because then you can put the project on hold and say, look, we cannot move beyond this point until I get X and Y in terms of information. So just be careful of the non-communicator. The last person on the list is the helicopter. Helicopter work is tough. As a writer, it's tough when someone is sitting over your shoulder and they're like, yo, I know some people like writing in the studio. I know I've seen it happen and they thrive in that environment. But I know many writers who prefer to go and write at home in their own space, where there's no one hanging over them, there's no time limit, they're able to just get their work done, right? I know for myself, when it comes to making beats, I'm not the guy. When you're in studio and you're like, yo man, play some keys for me, add this, do this with the drums, do this, that and the other. I've got maybe 2 or 3 people I'm comfortable doing that with. Other than that, I'm gonna work by myself, right? And I don't need that person sitting over my shoulder as I'm getting the work done. It's not a good feeling. I know some people want to be there when I'm mixing a track. I tend to mix in the late hours of the night when it's very quiet and I'm able to play everything at a very soft level and still hear myself and be able to work through the project. That's generally how I work. So I tell people that, and they're like, look man, I really want to sit in the process. I know what that means. I've sat with enough people mixing and making beats to know that it's not for me. I'm not keen on doing that. I get thrown off because if I'm picking through kicks They'll be like, yeah, choose that one. And I'm like, whoa, that's not my process. My process is I'm going to listen through all of these ones. I'm going to go listen over there. I might come back and do this. Or as I'm adding a sound, they'll be like, nah, remove that. That sounds whack. It might just be a placeholder sound. I might just need to use that now to get the notes down, and then I'll go change the sound later. But that's all got to do with my process, and I can't have someone over my shoulder because it's just freaking annoying. So that's why I prefer not to have that helicopter work happening. Some people prefer it because they know that if they sit with a person, they get the job done once, and they've got the patience to go through them with whatever problems that they might have. As a person trying to get work done, I understand that it is your project and you should be involved at the various processes. But at the same time, the reason why you came to this freelancer or came to this person to get the work done is because you trust that they have the capabilities to get the work done. By you giving them that freedom, look, you have your parameters, you create your brief, give them the brief, and then trust that they're going to do a decent job. After that, with the first set of revisions, usually they'll give you a set of free revisions. Go in with your revisions and then say, look, this is what I actually had envisioned. If it's super far from what it is that you wanted initially, then by all means, then you might need to sit with the person and sort of explain. But for the most part, try and be as present without being present. Another example is when I'm in studio with certain people, they are very concerned about everything happening in the studio. And this tends to be people who have just started out. They'll come into studio and they want to run everything. They want to be a part of the beat making process. They want to be a part of what's happening on the screen when we're tracking. They want to be a part of what's happening in the booth. They want to be a part of what's happening with all the other featured artists. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And they end up being the director of everything, and then their performance suffers and everybody else feels a little bit uncomfortable because of that. The best sessions that I've been in is when a bunch of professionals come together and they all do what they are good at doing. The rappers rap, the singers sing. I engineer the hell out of that track. When we're behind the mic, they trust I'm doing what I'm doing. They'll be like, turn me up, I'll turn them up. They need this, they need the thing to be loud in their headphones, I'll do the things that they need to feel comfortable behind the mic. Do they need to go outside and take a moment with the beat? That's cool. I'll get them a device and give them a set of headphones, and they can go and sit over there and they can listen to the beat. They can write if they want to. So it's all about everybody playing their part so that at the end of the day, you can all push forward. It's like a team sport. Think about a team sport. You can't expect the goalkeeper to score the goals. In the same way, the striker cannot use their hands to save the ball. Everybody's got their part to play on the field. Just like it is in the studio and in the creation of a song, everybody's got their part to play. So it's important that if you are going to be a person who wants to direct everything, direct to a point and then let people do what they need to do and then correct where it's necessary. It just makes life easier, and then you also feel a lot more energized by the end of the session.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you need any extra resources, just have a look in my description. You'll find my ebooks, you'll find my blog, my WhatsApp channel, as well as the other social medias that you can follow me on. Peace.